We think we are the owners, but what happens is we become operators of the business.
The biggest difference between short-term rentals, boutique hotels, is the amount of phone calls you're going to get.
Let's talk about the real numbers now. The investment side of the things, right?
Yeah. My best piece of advice, if your plan is to raise capital, is to talk to everybody you know and tell them what you do. The reason I find so many deals is because everyone knows I talk about boutique hotels. The reason people are like, Rashmi, if you ever have a deal, let me know. I'd love to invest in capital. It's because they probably met me at a conference, they probably heard me on a podcast, they probably follow me on social. That's how people remember you, and that's how you build trust.
Let's talk about valuation from a purchase standpoint.
Mhm.
So, how are you valuing these deals? Hey there, and welcome to another episode of Bigger Life Podcast, where we dive into minds of entrepreneurs and real estate professionals who are building big lives through business and real estate. I'm your host, Ray Bansal, and today we got an incredible guest with us, Rashmi B. Rashmi is a hospitality entrepreneur and co-founder of Rezo Hospitality, a boutique hotel and short-term rental management company that helps independently manage property owners' properties, scale with systems, support, and everything, you name it. She currently manages over 100 short-term rental, oversees the operations for about eight independent unique boutique hotels, and co-owns a hotel herself. Hey, Rashmi, welcome to Bigger Life Podcast. How are you doing today?
I am so good, Ray, and thank you so much for having me on. I'm so excited.
Same here. I appreciate for you joining the show. So, Rashmi, how did you get into real estate?
Yeah, so I've always been very curious about real estate. But before that, I graduated when I was 21. I had three job offers, and I just told my parents, I'm Indian, obviously. And so told my parents, I think I want to do something different in life. Can you just have 1 year? Let me figure this out. And I ended up opening my first restaurant in that 1 year. And I told my parents, if it doesn't work out, no worries, I'll go back and I'll get my master's. And at least I won't have the regret I didn't give my dreams a shot. That ended up becoming 11 years of doing that. And we still have a restaurant today. In 2019, we opened an Indian restaurant. And so we have a fast casual, very small Indian restaurant that we love being a part of the community. So, as part of that kind of first restaurant I opened, we had a wholesale sandwich company. And so I would drive in between Austin and San Antonio. I was located in New Braunfels at the time. I would listen to podcasts, and I came across all of the real estate podcasts everyone else has probably heard of, like Bigger Pockets. And I was like, okay, I need to do real estate. Like, I need to figure it out. Should I do a fix and flip? Should I wholesale? Like, but nothing was working out for me, right? Like, I tried it, but I just like didn't have the confidence to like buy a fixer upper. And I met my boyfriend then, and now my husband, and he was like, "We should buy real estate." And I'm like, "I know, but I can't like figure out how to do it." And 2020 hits. I have a restaurant. Everyone knows what happens with COVID. And I just get this time where like my restaurant was closed for 2 weeks. And I started thinking, and somebody mentioned like they bought an Airbnb, and I was like, "What is an Airbnb?" Never heard the term. And like in a month later, some of our friends invited us to stay at an Airbnb with them, and like I like fell in love. And I was like, this is real estate and this is hospitality. I can do hospitality all day out. But like blended with real estate, I was like, let's go. That weekend, I was supposed to hang out with friends, found a real estate agent, and I was like, show me everything in this town that can be an Airbnb. Like, I want to make an offer. And I didn't know where I would find the money. I had no idea how to do a bank loan. Like, I didn't know anything about this business. And some days, Ray, I'll be honest, I still feel like I know nothing about this business. But I think the first step is to have the dream and just to take action, and the universe somehow finds a way for you to get what you want.
Tell you what, my story is very similar. I had a salon and COVID hit and salon shut down, right?
Yeah,
And we were closed for what, like 2 months, 3 months, whatever. I don't want to be into a business where anything like that happens and I have to shut down. And
correct.
that was and by the way, salon was my diversification plan because I had IT, job and salon was like my backup plan. And now salon is shut down. I need to do something that and the other problem with the retail business is that it's so local and location tied, and you have to be there.
Correct.
And with my job, I was traveling pre-COVID so much, and that was causing impact. So I already had some burnout. Yeah, so just like you, I kind of stumbled into real estate. And what actually happened is I got accidentally because my basement it got flooded. Okay,
No,
so
okay,
one
yeah,
of the pipe freeze and it got flooded, and I had to do expensive reno after doing. And during that reno, it started. thinking about Airbnb and yeah, just started doing that as my first Airbnb in my basement, house hacking. And so I became an accidental real estate investor, renovation guy, and a short-term rental guy.
I love it. So I have a freezing story too. So 2020 to 22, I'm like the whole self-managing queen, right? I'm telling everybody you don't need a property management company. You can self-manage. Like I was doing everything through my cell phone. Like things were going like well. We had a couple of properties we're doing. December 24, 2022. I still don't forget this. We're in like three different states and right everything freezes over. It's like that one Christmas where like
Yep.
all the southern states got hit. I literally have my entire family over for Christmas dinner and I'm like on the phone trying to solve all of these things. And like no one is willing to come out. My guests are mad. Like it's just like one thing after another. And I was like, this is where I went wrong with this thing. This entire thing is like my restaurant where it's all dependent on me. And I was like, this has to change, man. And so that's when I went and started building my team. Like I hired a whole virtual team that I'm happy to talk about, but also like boots on the ground and got myself out. Because at that point, it was even though I'm an entrepreneur, like I was treating it like a job. Like if I wasn't there, nothing was happening. And the part of being an entrepreneur is how do you recruit really good people on your team so your companies aren't dependent on you.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is exactly the same time when it happened, that freeze happened. And by the
Yeah.
way, I was in Austin when my guest, I was still doing a little bit of Airbnb, and she texted me and she says, the roof collapsed. And I'm thinking, the roof collapsed, right? Like the roof
Oh my
collapsed.
God. Holy, yeah.
I'm like, okay, so can you send me some pictures? So she sent me the picture. So what happened is the basement had a sheetrock, drywall
Yeah.
on the ceiling. That collapsed because of the water accumulation.
Oh my
And
God.
I'm like, and that was the same Christmas. And man, I was supposed to go to that Callaway Garden or whatever that place is where they do beautiful lights near
Yeah.
Austin,
Yeah.
right? We had to cancel those tickets, and I'm driving back to Georgia, and I could not find any contractors. But you're right. The other important thing is operator versus being a owner of the business. And most of the time, when we own a business, we think we are the owners, but what happens is we become operators of the business.
Yep.
And you just get so much sucked in as a job, right? That in the first place, you did not want to do a job because it's a job, but now you are doing the same job, but for yourself.
Yep.
And that distinction between operating a business versus truly managing a business as an owner and let somebody else operate it, that's a distinction where 90% of the, I think, entrepreneurs, we fail. And I'm part of that as well.
I think the bigger picture is most people just aren't clear like what do they want in life, right? Like
Yeah.
if you want a lifestyle business and it's operational on you and it's just you and that's what you want, that's great. Like do that all day long. But like I didn't become an entrepreneur to do that, and like that was one of my life goals where I was like, I want this, but I couldn't figure out how to break it to get there. And I think a lot of people, they'll set like an annual goal, but most people aren't looking at like a 3 year or a 5 year goal and going, who do I want to be in 3 years? Because honestly, like the cost to being like, hey, I'm going to hire more team members is you have more expenses. Like you're giving up what you were making to pay somebody else that you're training. But in 3 years, now you can take on a lot more projects and you can make 10x the money you were making before. So there's a cost associated to that I think a lot of people just get so shy and they're like, my business will never grow. And now I'm just going to make no money.
Yeah, absolutely. In the short term, you do have that cash flow reduction or investment that you're doing, but you kind of see it negatively. And yeah, so from self-managing to managing properties for others, was that your awakening, that moment of that freeze happened? That's when you said, I'm just gonna build a team and then start taking more properties under my umbrella?
Yeah, so a couple of things happened that January. And so the first thing I did was actually I used to listen to a podcast that I absolutely love, and I actually ended up joining that guy's mastermind because I was like, I'm Indian. I'm like, no putting money into masterminds. Like I can figure it out for free in this. But what I realized was I could spend another figuring this out, or I could just go with people who knew what they were doing, use their system, and just like get out of this. So I did that. I found a virtual team to help me start managing a lot of the stuff and hired them on. And in that process of me doing it, and like I'm talking to you, Ray, I talked to a lot of other people, like, here's what I'm thinking about doing, here's my game plan. One of my friends, he was like, hey, Rashmi, I have 35 units I've kind of built on my own. It's doing well, but I can sell, but like operations is hard for me. And I see you're doing a pretty good job systemizing your company. Any interest in coming on and helping me with mine? And I was like, yeah, sure. So that's how I actually got into like managing for other people. And so my personal current team, we do my properties, and then we manage Rezo, which is our boutique hotel kind of branch. And then we have a complete separate company that does all of the management for our guests, or like, our property owners.
Let's talk about two different things here. How is managing single family homes or, the STRs in general,
Yep.
like the independent vacation homes versus boutique hotels, right? And what are boutique hotels for the audiences? When you say I own a boutique hotel, what do you really mean by that?
Yeah.
And how are you distinguishing that from the other terms into the industry like motels and hotels? What is boutique hotel? And then how are you distinguishing it from the single family, or not single family, but from a vacation homes?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of words being thrown around, and so typically, and you also hear stuff like independent hotels, right? So typically, hotels are flagged into two separate categories. So there's franchise hotels, so I think like the Marriotts, the Hiltons, your typical Hampton Inn, Residence Inn. That's a very good like. Then there's kind of the independents, right? And so independents are typically don't have like a big chain. They can grow into it, but typically, it's kind of there's the motels that you see like the roadside. We call them exterior corridor, which means like you park your car, you check in, and then the door like opens outward into the parking lot, or exterior. Whereas an interior corridor, it means the Hampton Inn. It's all built in. The hallways an AC hallway. So there's those two. When most people say like boutique independent property, it's such a broad term. It's like saying Airbnb. There's so many things that could fall underneath it. It could be an exterior corridor motel. It could be a bed and breakfast that's been converted. It could be a lodge in the mountains that has 15 rooms. And so each property we have is a little bit different from each other. Like they're not like cookie cutters. I know some people or some friends who have 10 cabins plus an RV park, and like that would be considered like an independent property. Now, would you call that a boutique hotel? Like, I don't know. It just depends, right? I think that's more like a resort, or like a campground. And so when you kind of get into that space, there's a lot of distinctions. The biggest difference between short-term rentals, boutique hotels, and this is why, again, this goes back to the team, is the amount of phone calls you're going to get. I think most Airbnb guests, they know like, hey, I book on the Airbnb app. I talk to my host. If there's an issue, I go back to the Airbnb app and I'm like, the door lock isn't working. Like, whatever. Hotel guests are not like that. They will call you and be like, how do I book? I want to book a room. And you have to walk them through the whole process, even though you might have a website that says like, book here. If their door code isn't working, they will call you. Like, they are not app savvy in the fact that traditional hotel culture, if you thought about the last time you checked in at a Residence Inn, you probably went up to the front desk, you're like, here's my ID, here's my credit card. They give you a room key and you go up to your room. At no point where you're like, let me text anyone really from Marriott to deal with this. They might have sent you a text saying, how's your stay or something, but like it's not part of the culture. And so you need a team on the back end that's, able to pick up the amount of phone calls that you get for like a boutique hotel. Does that answer the question?
It does, but I'm still trying to understand
Yeah.
the underlying word here, boutique, right? So if I buy a motel like which has 10 rooms, how do I qualify it as a boutique? Because
Yeah.
it's an existing property, it's a hotel. Or if I buy a bread and breakfast, which traditionally I always knew it as a bed and breakfast, right? How do I say boutique? I'm kind of confused with that word, maybe.
Yeah, yeah. Typically, anything that's less than 25 keys, and key is just like apartment, like, apartment doors, or like the number of doors, is typically considered boutique. And boutique just means smaller. And anything that's kind of 25 keys and above, really like 50 keys to 100 keys, is what we call medium size, maybe even up to 150. Anything kind of above 150 doors, you're kind of into the larger property. So you'll see a lot of those kind of like resort styles. A lot of them are in Vegas, like the big hotels. And so that's kind of like boutique is just really anything. It's not like there's a set number of keys you have to be less than that. I know there's some great brands that have 40 doors and they're boutique because of the style of work that they do. And there's also a lot of bed and breakfast that I'm like, I maybe wouldn't consider you boutique, you know?
Let's talk about staffing. Like, let's go to the next segment of that. So typically in a vacation rental home, you don't staff it, right? So everything is kind of like contractual. So your cleaners will come in, your handyman will go in. But typically in a hotel, motel setting, even if it's a small little motel, like exactly what you said earlier, people are used to going to the front desk and giving the credit card and the ID and all that stuff. Under Since we kind of come from a different background, we come from this vacation rental background, and we owning these properties, in a way, we are tech savvy, even if our customers are not. So, from a staffing standpoint, are you staffing them, or are you handling everything virtually like as a vacation rental?
Yeah, it's half and half. Some of our hotels have on-site GMs, though they might only work like 8 to 5. So all of our properties are designed to not have a front desk. And so when a guest books, they get emailed, hey, just know, we're staffless, we're conciergeless, it's self-check-in. So once you get to the property, we have them electronically sign license, ID, and then they can just go straight to their room. If they need anything, we have a 24/7 number. And then we typically have a housekeeper slash handyman that's typically less than 5 minutes away from the property. They typically live, they don't live on site, but they're close enough that like if they needed anything. And then we have a whole system for like if guests need backup towels, they need backup coffee pods. And one of my biggest pet peeves, and you'll hear me talk about this right everywhere I go, is the way front desks currently are. And a lot of hotel owners will push back and say, that's how we do our personalized touch. And I'm like, I stay at a lot of hotels. I go to a lot of conferences. The front desk experience is so subpar. Like everybody just wants my ID and they want my credit card, and I have a 2-second conversation and they're like, here's your room key. And if I'm like, what's a good like restaurant around here? They'll typically be like, oh, why don't you go to concierge? Or they're like, oh, like here's like one or two. And like it's so disruptive. Like it's not a real human interaction experience. And so I'm like, why do we need this? Like I'm a modern millennial traveler. I don't want to talk to most people. Even in my Uber, I'm like, don't talk to me. I want to be quiet and I want to fill out all my things online and I want to get to my room. I want to spend my time with people that matter to me in the sense that, like, if I'm there to hang out with my friend, that's what I want to focus on. Right. And so we're going to start seeing a lot more of this tech into hotels. But I think the biggest space where I've seen this make a difference is actually immigration. So I went to Dubai like 3 years ago, and my entire immigration into Dubai was without any human. It was all computer. Like I scan my passport, it scans my face, I do this, and I just walk in and I'm in a new country. And I was like, it's very cool to see the level of tech and AI they were using back then, and the amount of staffing they had cut out. And so I think the next hotel, and I think the other thing people are really worried about is if we cut front desk, are we cutting jobs? And you and I both know in the hospitality business, there's always a need for people. And I'm like, hey, so for us, a lot of our housekeepers or our GMs double as people who are helping people around the property. But now they get to talk about things that really matter. A lot of our guests will ask our housekeepers, what's your favorite restaurant? And they can have a 10-minute conversation with that housekeeper that's genuinely about good food and them not worrying about where's your license, where's your ID, why is this not working. Like all of our back end team takes care of that.
Awesome. Let's talk about cost, right?
Mhm.
Typically, again, I'm comparing boutique hotels with short-term rental homes and kind of coming from that mindset. So the cleaning cost with the vacation homes is based on the property and all that good stuff. Now, with these boutique hotels, these are generally room style properties. And so, what are you paying your housekeepers, let's say, per room for a turnover standpoint?
Yeah, turnover standpoint is very interesting, and it very much depends on the geographic area you're in the world. The other thing, it depends on your style of property, right? So, like, we manage a property; it's got 14 separate cabins on it. It's almost like a little mini resort, right? It's got a pool and it's got all the things, right? But each cabin is like an individual cabin, so it's got fireplace, full kitchen, hot tub. I can charge a cleaning fee on there, and it's very easy to say it's $100 cleaning fee, just like we run our Airbnbs. So on that, I don't have to run like an hourly staffing model. On the ones we have like per hotel room, I've seen anywhere from $30 per room turn to all the way up to 60 to 90, just depending if you're in LA versus if you're in Austin. Though at this point, I have to say Austin's starting to match some LA prices for what that's worth. Typically in hotels, you don't charge the cleaning rate into like as a separate line item. It is something we're testing out with some of our hotels, especially then where we get longer stays. So where guests are staying 3, 4, 5 nights, we're testing out cleaning fees, and they're rolled into the price just on the back end. We have them separated, and I think it's made it a lot easier for our accounting team, and it's an additional kind of revenue source that our revenue team is going. Is it worth it?
Let's talk again. We are still on the cost side of things. So, on-site GMs for some of your properties. So, what's a typical salary for GMs?
Yeah, that really just depends on what they're doing. Some people have them hourly, and you can have it like, hey, it's $30 an hour. I only need you for 10 hours a week. And some people will go, hey, I'll pay you 50, 60K. But that depends on exactly what it is they're doing. Most of our properties we're pushing for are staffless, so we don't have on-site GMs. We have head housekeeping, and then we have like a property management company like ours that acts as the GM, and we can work on a flat fee or a percentage basis. I love the cost conversation. I'm happy to go more into it, but I feel like you want to talk about revenue because I think there's a lot more chance to not only raise capital, there's a lot more opportunity to acquire properties with seller financing. And the fact is, I think your revenue potential has a much higher ceiling than we do with Airbnbs because you only have one door in an Airbnb. You can only sell one night, one time.
That's where I was coming next.
Yeah.
Before we go into revenue side of
Yeah.
things, let's talk distribution, right?
Mhm.
So typically hotels have slightly different distribution model than Airbnbs, right? Vacation rental home, primary sources, Airbnb.
Yep.
You like it or don't like it, but still everybody's trying to go with direct bookings. I think the person that I came across just one person who came across like 40% for vacation rental homes, right?
Yep.
Maybe 40% direct booking, but still like 60% is still Airbnb heavy, right? What is a typical distribution model for these boutique hotels?
Mhm.
Which channels or sources and what's the percentage distribution of those?
Yeah, it's interesting. We have a revenue management team we've built in house for boutique hotels because it's such a unique kind of model that we run. And every time we meet with our owners, we have like a weekly call with our owners. We literally have a pie chart that's like, here's how many direct bookings we got. Here's how many OTAs. Here's how much is Booking.com. Here's how much is Expedia. So typical, and this changes per hotel, and it depends how much you've invested in your website and as you've invested in your SEO. Typically, I recommend you go with a boutique hotel based PMS. I personally prefer Cloudbeds. It really doesn't matter to me what you pick, but as long as they're designed for boutique hotels. The reason I say that is if you go with that, your distribution is going to be a lot easier than if you go with a software that's not designed for it. So I have short term rentals. We don't run them on Cloudbeds because they're not designed for it. For our boutique hotels, they're all run on Cloudbeds. And then we go through direct book is pretty major, especially if you spent the money on websites and stuff. I know some of my friends are 100% direct book. Like they're not even listed on some OTAs. And even if they are, like it makes next to nothing of their business. Typically, I see like a 60-40 split, like 60% direct, 40% split between all of the OTAs. I think by default, because I come from the Airbnb world, we're very good at getting Airbnb bookings. So we tend to rely pretty heavy on Airbnb as part of that 40%. Verbo is not as popular, but Expedia is very popular, and so is Booking.com. If you live in an international market, and by international market, I mean like your visitors are international, like say you're in Orlando, right, and you're more likely to get international visitors, then you'll probably see a lot more from Booking.com, and you'll probably see a lot from Agoda, which I think they own Priceline.
Yeah, actually, Agoda Booking and Priceline is like one holding company.
Yeah.
Vrbo, Expedia, and I believe they on Hotwire. So that's an Orbitz.
So recently, Airbnb acquired Hotels Tonight, and then Booking.com and Expedia are working on some back end collab for the US market. And so, because we're starting to see some of our inventory, because what we'll do sometimes, just as part of our testing, is switch off one of our OTAs and just see if another OTA can pick up more. And what we're finding is like we're on Booking, but then all of our inventory was showing up on Expedia. And I'm like looking and I'm like, I turned it off. Like, what is happening right now? And I realized there's a little bit of something they're doing in the US market where they're trying to work together.
Yep, yep, absolutely. And do you deal with bed banks?
We don't do any of that. We haven't talked to them. We do deal with a whole bunch of government stuff. Like so CLC is one. I probably shouldn't comment on them. I have very strong opinions on them. But
Which
we've
one
done
you said, CCLU?
CLC. It's like corporate lodging, something or the other. Forget exact full form of it. A lot of like the FEMA stuff will go through them. But there's like a whole bunch of like ancillary ones that a lot of corporations use. Again, it's all about knowing your guest avatar. Like we know our guest avatar is typically a vacation and traveler who's looking for a last minute getaway. So like as long as we know that, we market on those channels.
Let's talk about the real numbers now. The investment side of the things, right?
Yeah.
Let's talk about valuation from a purchase standpoint.
Mhm.
So, how are you valuing these deals? If I'm looking at a deal, what should I, and I come, let's say, from a real estate investment background slash maybe some STR background. A, what kind of deals should I look for in from a boutique hotel standpoint? And how should I value them on a pro forma paper, a
Yeah.
quick 2 minute analysis standpoint?
Yeah. So very loaded question. So a couple of things. One, I wanted to get in boutique hotel space, couldn't quite figure it out. So I started on the management side, and so most of my stuff is on the management. So I haven't been part of a lot of the acquisitions for these properties, but I'll kind of tell you how I went through like my acquisition model. So the first thing is kind of back of the napkin math, right? So you see a deal, and you're like, is this even worth it? Rule of thumb, again, very, very roughly rule of thumb, 65% expense ratio is pretty normal in boutique hotels. So if you have a property that's say, and everyone has different multipliers they like to use in back of napkin math. I like the 65%. For Airbnb, I kind of do the 20% rule too. So I just like having like big top line numbers and like, what are we looking at? Typically, hotels, if they're in hotspots, like I'm talking like Nashville's of the world, Atlanta's of the world, if it's a good, well run property, it's going to go for 4x revenue. It's pretty typical. So if top line it's making, say, $1 million, it's normal that it be priced at 4 million. I think that's very expensive. That's not the type of investor I am. I'm looking for like the ugliest thing on the street. The uglier it looks, the more money it is, right? Because I'm a value add investor. And that's the other part about like knowing who you are. What kind of investor are you? Are you looking for cash flow? Are you looking for stability? Are you looking for a property you would be so proud of to show your family and like none of these things matter? Then that's great. Just know what your end goal is. Because I think people go in with one end goal and they get in and they're like, oh, like this doesn't make any money. Yeah, well, you knew that going in. And so it's important to know what are your goals with the property itself. There's a whole bunch of analysis tools that are out there that can help you kind of comp properties, mark occupancy and demand.
What's the ADNA comparison of this boutique hotel side of the things?
Yeah.
Because if you are doing a value add property, you would like to know what it can make.
Yep.
What's the potential?
Correct. So for hotels, I don't recommend AirDNA. It's good again for back of the napkin math, and if you know the area. Typically in hotels, use what's called the STR report. It's called like a star report, or you can use CoStar. CoStar it's a little pricey. I'm not gonna lie. A lot of the branded hotels kind of report into CoStar, so they're good. If you have a commercial broker you're working with, they probably have access to CoStar, and they could probably pull a lot of reports for you. But that will give you your ADR. RevPAR is like the number you want to look for, which is your ADR times your occupancy for hotels, and then you want to see your occupancy metrics. And then the biggest thing you want to see is a lot of investors coming from the Airbnb world, especially like the luxury ones. In Airbnb, there is slightly more room, in my mind, to over improve a property, right? So, like, you could take a garage room, take it out, and put a game room in there, right? And your guests will probably love it. In hotels, you want to make sure there's enough margin in the deal you're looking at that, like, if I made this nicer, can I actually charge a higher rate? And right before I was talking to you, Ray, I was talking to a restaurateur, and he was like, my lease has a 5% increase every year, but it's not like customers are willing to pay 5% more in food costs every single year, right? So you could have the best property on the block, but if your competition is charging $200 a night, maybe you can charge 400 a night, maybe, but maybe you can. Maybe you can only charge 250.
I can correlate to.
Yeah,
No, I
oh, go
was
ahead.
just saying I could correlate to that rent escalation. When I had the salon, I'm like, rent is increasing. Like I think we had 3% every year,
Yeah.
and COVID hit, and I still had to pay that 3% while the salon is shut down. And when we opened up, we were only taking one client at a time in the
Yeah.
whole salon, right? Out of like 9 chairs or 10 chairs, whatever. It's not like that. I can increase my prices. So,
Exactly. Exactly. And like you're gonna have seasonality, right? And you're gonna have days that like aren't getting booked, right? And so you want to factor in all of these things. On Airbnb, you have one day, one night you gotta sell, right?
yeah.
In the hotel, you have to sell that same time 10
Multiplier.
times. Exactly. And demand is high. Like there's times where I'll end up in a new city and I'll be like, oh, I forgot to book a hotel. Let me look now. And I'll book at, 8 p.m. at night for the same night. Most Airbnbs aren't doing that,
Yeah.
right? Or if they did, they only do it once. But like, how do you price structure so you can do it over and over again?
So how do you see this deal, like, let's say on the acquisition side to making profit, like with the, again, vacation rentals? They're typically in a housing market, stable market in the sense of your home's value is protected by your neighbor's value
Yep.
because that's how you are. You can improve your property. It might get you a 10% premium, but that's about it. It's not gonna get for 50% premium, right?
Correct.
So how do you go from like 1x to what you bought it for, and
Yep.
then you're cash flowing it or whatever, and closing the deal, like what you were talking about earlier, raising the funding sources and all that good stuff, to then actually probably refinancing it for a higher number or selling it out or doing whatever.
Yeah. So I'm still in that first stage. So I'll let you know when I refi out how it looks. The other thing I think I didn't hear you mention on Airbnb, I just want everybody to know is I love the Airbnb business. Like we're very active in it, but just know like regulations are coming for this business, and like it was just about time. We've seen it in a lot of our markets, and honestly, like I'm for regulations. I want our places to be as safe as possible for our guests, but regulations can change. And so be careful with your next Airbnb acquisition. The great thing about hotels is they're commercial and they're always going to be commercial. Unless, and this is the caveat to this, is a lot of people will buy like a multifamily apartment and run it as a hotel. That's great. But if you're not getting it converted into a hotel, your bank loan is going to be a lot harder. For you to be able to sell at a hotel cap rate is going to be a lot harder because at the end of the day, you're just a multifamily. Airbnb multifamily, I think, is a great like starting point in this game. It's a great cash flow play. But once you want to get to the next level and you want to be able to sell on a cap rate basis based on what you've done to a property, then start getting into commercial deals that have commercial backing so you're able to make those improvements. The other thing is, yeah, you might convert in an Airbnb a garage into a game room, but if tomorrow a buyer wants to buy it 5 years down the road and they don't want to Airbnb it, you might need to convert that garage back because they might just want an actual garage. That typically doesn't happen in hotels, typically. Um, and so there's a ton of great podcasts, including this one about like what you can do specifically in boutique hotels to make them, stand out. But it's very similar to Airbnb. Know your guest. Like if you're attracting families, most kids are really happy with like a really nice pool. Most people want a nice clean bed. Like these are basics, but can you go one level above, right? Like we're testing out breakfast at one of our properties right now. Like is adding complimentary breakfast 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. going to make the experience better for our guests? One of the other things we're really big about is the location. That's the one thing you can't change. So make sure you have the right location where people are able to find you. You're on Google. You're showing up on the SEO stuff. And then we're doing a lot of work on the back end at our companies where we're investing in SEO, Facebook ads, social media. Yeah, social media is the buzzword and it's like just gets to me so much. There's a social media where, yeah, you can like do a post and be like, look at me. But then there's social media that actually drives traffic to your hotel. And that kind of social media is a lot pricier than a lot of people expect. In theory, it's very easy to say, let's work with an influencer, but the back end campaign, there's a lot of work that goes into working with an influencer and then tracking the returns that you're getting. So I think you can go right with all those options, just know which options you're going to pick.
Absolutely. And location is always the key. Like it's always said, location, 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 right?
Yeah.
So
And the other thing, if you're looking at boutique hotels, I know we like to be independent. I would still go talk to a brand and just kind of get their feedback on your deal. Because, A, they have a lot of proprietary data that they might say, oh, like, here's why I would want this to be a Hilton property, or here's why I would not want this to be a Hilton property. And so part of your exit could be selling to an investor who wants to make your property in Hampton, and I don't know, but you want to see what are the criteria they're looking for because the best thing you can do when you're buying real estate is figuring out how you're going to sell it, whether it's refi or an exit, like especially if you're raising investor capital, like you have to be able to pay them out somehow, and so you need to be really strong on your exit.
yeah, good point. I mean, if you can look into all those options beforehand when you're buying it, it makes sense. Raising capital. So, how do you come about raising capital for these kind of deals?
Yeah, I personally haven't raised capital for any of the deals. I'm looking at one currently that will probably be raising for in the next couple of months, provided everything goes through. But I haven't. We've done friends and family, and it really just like you've partnered with your friend. It's really been personal. What I will say from everyone that I've known that has raised capital, make sure you have a really good lawyer that makes sure you're doing things the right way.
Absolutely, structured the right way, and there's a lot of regulation around it, and you don't want to jump into an orange suit, right?
Exactly. But my best piece of advice, if your plan is to raise capital, is to talk to everybody you know and tell them what you do. The reason I find so many deals is because everyone knows I talk about raising cartels. The reason people are like, Rashmi, if you ever have a deal, let me know. I'd love to invest in capital. It's because they probably met me at a conference, they probably heard me on a podcast, they probably follow me on social. That's how people remember you, and that's how you build trust. It's hard to go to someone and be, give me $1 million. But if you've had that relationship for a long time and they know you're reliable, they will probably help you find somebody else who has access to capital.
Let's get into the next segment, team
Ooh,
building. How about that?
yeah,
So,
I
we
love it.
discussed about team building earlier. So, we discussed about being an owner versus an operator.
Hmm.
And majority of the businesses, they don't scale because the owners became the operators.
Hmm.
And the business itself, the idea itself has the potential. But how do you become a true owner? And it seems like you have mastered it. So let's talk about
I'm glad that when we give off that image, that is not true.
it.
I think there's a lot of things I still definitely have to improve. But I think one of the best things you can do is always be knowing that we're always improving ourselves, right? And being aware. So a couple of things. Giving up control is going to be the hardest thing you ever do. And I know people are like, what? I'd love to give up control. I'll have somebody do this. Easier said than done. The way I started, and I have my restaurant, right? So I started by hiring virtual assistants, and I actually read the 4 Hour Work Week when I was in college, and I was like, I need to figure out how to apply this to non-tech stuff because all of my businesses have like, there's real estate and there's service business and hospitality, and I actually hired a graphic designer, and I was like, I have $200 a month. What can you do? And he was like, I can maybe work, 5-10 hours and help you with XYZ stuff. And I was like, cool, let's do it. And she was working overnight in the Philippines. And so I would give her all the tasks at night. She would finish it. And I would wake up and like the work would be done. And I was like, this is amazing. Like, I need to replicate this. And if anyone here has a restaurant, you know how much graphic work goes into your restaurant. At this point, you know how much graphic work goes into an Airbnb where I feel like we're always making like these guidebooks and all this stuff. So start with baby steps. That's how I first got started. Then I started going, hey, anything I can do on a computer, I can probably teach a VA to do that's repetitive. So ordering supplies. A lot of people are like terrified to be like, what if they get my credit card number and they'll just run off with my credit card? There's so many ways in today's market we can have a credit card that has $100 limit cap or $200 limit, like whatever your limit is. And people are worried, and I'm like, "What are you worried about?" Like, I'll give them my Amazon login so that they can order supplies. But like, what if they order a whole bunch of? I'm like, what are they going to order? Clorox from your Amazon? Like, what are we even talking about? I think people are so worried about risk that and like imagining scenarios that I'm like, there's some really good people out there who really need jobs and who are good at what they do. So start giving up. And for me, on Airbnb, and this maybe I should started with this. I went in with a very clear vision. I was full time. I was working about 70 hours a week at my restaurant when I started Airbnb. I didn't have the option not to have a team with my Airbnb. Like I have never cleaned with any of our properties, and that's a very conscious decision of mine. I'm like, I have to find cleaners that are good enough. I have to have backup people. Like I have to make this work without me actually doing the physical work. And in terms of quality, let's be real. Maybe you can meet an 80% mark. No one is going to be 100%. And that's just the truth of the matter. But 80% is still far better than what you were. And we've gotten to that point now where honestly, my team is far better at what they do, at all the things they do, than even I can do their job. And your entire job, I think, as an entrepreneur is to find people who are far more talented than you are and recruit them and stay out of their way so they can do what they do. And a lot of times my team will even on me like push back and they're like, no, like Rashmi, I know we used to do it this way, but here's the new way we're doing this and here's why we're doing it. And I'm like, yeah, that's fair. Like I agree. And you want those kinds of people and build a team culture where the team's pushing back and is giving you like that critical feedback.
Yeah, yeah. Two questions.
Yeah.
How are you finding these people? Like, what resources do you use to find your VAs?
Yeah. So I just have an internal team that's built in at this point, and so they refer each other. So if I need somebody else, I just have a network. A lot of business you'll find is just knowing the right people. But if anyone's looking for a really great recruiter, I have one out of Latin America. And I built an entire team out of the Philippines. It works really great for us, and we'll continue to do that. But for anyone that's starting today, I highly recommend Latin America to the Philippines. A couple of reasons. I think Latin America doesn't have a language barrier. I mean, like I'm in Texas, a lot of people here speak Spanish. Latin Americans speak very good English and Spanish. The time zone is much better in my mind. And the other thing is, I think there's culturally, Latin America understands the U.S. Kind of very similarly. I mean, we're just down a plane right away, basically. I have a great friend named Alex, who's a fantastic recruiter. She'll take really good care of you. If anyone wants her info, I'm happy to connect you. Like, there's no cost or anything. I'm happy to get you connected, and you can have a conversation with her, and she'll find you some really great people for any of your roles.
And what are you typically paying for your VAs?
Yeah. So VA salaries differ. Typically, they start around $600 to $700 a month, and they can go all the way up to 5 to 10 grand a month, just depending on what they're doing. Typically, if it's STR, VA, guest communication, cleaner management, that kind of stuff, you could probably expect around the $800 a month range. I think it's pretty comfortable.
What's your current team size? So you're managing about what, 100 units right now?
Yeah. So we have 10 VAs on one of our teams, and then we have six on the other one. So about 15 to 16 VAs.
Awesome. No, that's a pretty good sized team
Yeah.
just for VAs, right?
uh,
Managing.
yeah,
Is it
yeah.
like self-sufficient team that's operating by itself, like without Rashmi being in the picture? So if you were vacationing somewhere where you did not have cell service, Wi-Fi, nothing, no way to connect, and you were gone for like, let's say, I don't know, how long can you go with not having communication with your team? Let's put it this way.
I think my team would be fine. I think my owners would freak out. So on the short-term rental management company, it pretty much runs itself. I do 2, 3 calls a week on it. I can go on that one for a while and not be needed. We do have an ops manager that's stateside based on that team. So that makes it a lot easier. That's actually one of my next hires at my hotel management company. So just to rephrase, so we have 100 short-term rentals that we manage, but that doesn't include our boutique hotel doors, which is why we have so many VAs. On that one, once I get my ops manager like dialed in and that position filled, I think I'll be able to take a lot more time off. But right now, if I was like without cell service and Wi-Fi, I could go for a pretty solid like 5 days, and I think I'd be fine. I genuinely think my owners would freak out a lot more than my team would. My team would probably be like, "This is," and that started with baby steps, right? So last year I took a trip to Europe. We just onboarded our third hotel, and I was like, I'm going to be on a plane. I refuse to buy Wi-Fi on a plane for no other reason than I was like, I just need to learn to like deconnect, man. Like I don't need to be online all the time. And I was like, listen, guys, I'm going to be in Europe. I'm going to be 8 hours ahead of US schedule, and I'm going to be offline because I'm going to be on a plane. And I landed. I expected like to turn on my phone and see like just notifications like flooded. I turned on my phone and like nothing came through. And I was like, oh, it must be like my wife, my cell service network isn't working or whatever. So I checked and like I finally just dropped a message in Slack and I'm like, is everything okay? And they're like, yeah, why? And I'm like, I have no messages. They're like, nothing happened. And I was like, that's when I realized it's the baby steps you have to take. So I went on vacation. It was amazing. Worked about 2 hours a day on my vacation. But when I came back, I just kept that pace up. Connect with my team for about 2 hours a day. I've taken that down now. But baby steps when you're in session to be like, hey, this is how you prep your team. This is who to contact when there's an emergency.
Absolutely. Let's talk about property management, especially vacation rental property management. We already talked about boutique hotels. So how is vacation rental property management different from a long-term rental property management?
I think there's a bunch of things. There's a much higher turnover of your guests to begin with, right? So you have a cleaning crew that's going in there daily. You have guests that are checking out in and out. A lot of people think there's higher likelihood of damage in an Airbnb, which that may or may not be true, but you also catch it a lot faster. And you can also file for it a lot faster as opposed to a long-term rental. I know fees for long-term rental are typically 7 to 10%, whereas in short-term rentals we do 20%. But I also think we provide a lot more value. We have in-house dynamic pricing built in. We take care of cleaning. If you have a rowdy guest, we're taking care of that. If you have property damage, we're taking care of that. We've had homeowners that have had pipes burst, and like we've been like, we've sent our handyman, got the water turned off, helped them file for insurance claims, put the paperwork together. So there's a lot more work that goes on that I think a lot of owners don't see.
Absolutely. STR property management is a thankless job. There's a lot of work that happens to put the property on the market. That's A. B is the pricing and all that, even to get that customer book your property. Then third segment comes into after booking and before the customer kind of checks in and the whole shebang of communication and the issues that kind of come along with it and the verifications and things like that. When guest is checking in, like for them to, when they're standing outside of your property to, for them to kind of walk inside, any lock issues and things like that, to when the guest is inside and then once they check out the turnover and the supplies and in-house issues and things like that. The reason I'm saying that is, and I wanted to hear it from you, just like you said, long-term rental property management is basically collecting the check and maybe once in a while you send out a little handyman out there. Over here, because you have so much of turnover of your guests slash tenants, in a month you will have maybe 12 to 15, who knows, right? How long? My average typical stay is about 2.5 nights. So typically we see about 10 to 12 checkouts or turnovers, and there's a lot of work that is involved. So even for 20%, I think we are just doing it for quite cheap.
Yeah, it's true. And I think the other thing people don't realize is in long term rental, right? Like, say, I maybe have a toilet at 2 a.m. that's not working, right? Like, I live here long term. I could tell you, hey, like, send somebody tomorrow. Maybe it's Saturday, and you're like, hey, I can't send someone till Monday. And I'm like, fine, maybe I'm annoyed, but I'm okay. You can't do that in the Airbnb world. If a guest is like, hey, the toilet's not working, maybe not at 2 a.m., but like you better have somebody out there at 8 a.m. that's able to fix it and the guest is able to enjoy their amenity. We see this all the time with anywhere we have pools and hot tubs and, any maintenance issues comes up, like we're on top of it and we're like, we're going to get this fixed for you as much as possible during your stay.
Let's talk about going from, so if somebody is thinking about starting a business about property management and they manage one or two properties of their own or a couple of properties, how do they scale this business? You earlier mentioned about a mastermind. Obviously, now you have graduated yourself. So, so how does a person kind of walk into your shoes that you did maybe, I don't know, 3, 4 years back?
Yeah. So if you start self-managing, which I think is great, right? Like you have your own properties. Again, know your end goal. If your goal is to self-manage 3 properties that you own and you want to spend the rest of your time with your kids, like do that. Don't get into this whole like, I have to be a property manager and I need this many properties. I think so many people just forget like what it is, like the reason they got into real estate and the reason they wanted this freedom. So for me, because I started building a team, I was like, I need more flexibility and I needed the income. So the way I started, and is your question like, how do you find more clients, or how do you? Okay, yeah, talk to everybody, man. Like, talk to, I've talked to cashiers at HEB, and they're like, oh yeah, there's the other guy who comes here who has a luxury property, and I'm like, well, hook me up, man, girl, like, come on. But talk to everybody that you know and tell them what it is you're doing, and make it easy for them to understand. The more you network, talk to real estate agents, talk to people who are lenders, title companies, drop off your business cards, follow up with them. There's so much referral source out there. It is crazy that I think most people don't use. There's more business than most people know what to do with, especially if you happen to be good at what you do. And once you have one or two case studies, maybe it's your self management ones, make a case study. Be like, I bought this property. It was doing, I don't know, 60K a year when I bought it. I put in 20K of renovation. Now it does $120,000 a year. And here's how to like give them something they can be like, oh, this is awesome. I talk to so many real estate agents who are like, yeah, my a client wants to buy a house and they want to Airbnb it. I'm like, cool, let me just help them. Like, I don't have to manage it. I'm happy just to help them and tell them like what I think it would make. And a lot of times they come back and they're like, yeah, could you help us manage it? I'm like, sure.
Yeah. But is there a faster way to acquire your clientele from the hosts that are already doing short-term rental, but they might be either burned out or they might not be as efficient into managing those things? And how do you acquire host properties in bulk, kind of thing, at a speed?
Yeah. So you're talking about like business acquisition, like how can I go out and buy a property management company, but maybe not in so many fancy terms. Maybe it's a guy who, has 5 properties he's been co-hosting. And
Maybe
again,
five, maybe singular properties, but kind of like, so you see all of these single, not that I'm into,
yeah.
managing other people's properties, but for example, sometimes you see somebody's property, it's a single person, and you just look at the property and you're like, man, this person needs help. So, so how do you help that person out? And then not just that person out, maybe 100 other person out, right? So how do you do it at scale? And that way you're not convincing somebody to do a STR. They're already into the ball game, but they just know what it means, and you just come and help them out.
I think there's two questions. One thing you can do is acquisitions, right? Like you can go out and buy another host, or you can buy a property management company. And so if they have 10 units and they're burnt out, inefficient, you can be like, hey, I tell everybody I know, like if you're ever interested in selling, like let me know, and at least give me a chance to make you an offer. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. Some people like I've made an offer and they're like it's way too low, and I'm like that's fair, and they'll wait a year and then they're like, all right, like your offer was the best one we got. And so acquisition is one, and the other thing which I think you're talking about, which is how do you cold outreach an owner. And there's lots of different ways. Like wholesalers are really great at that, where you can skip trace an owner's address, you can get their data, make sure you're compliant. There's a whole bunch of laws around all of that stuff. But you can skip trace an owner, find their data, maybe send them a letter, send them an email, send them a text, whatever that is, and be like, hey, I noticed your property on Airbnb, I can help you make more money. The one thing I will say is do not do this on Airbnb. Airbnb has very strict regulations against it. So make sure you know how to find their address and then skip trace it. And that's kind of the other way people.
But Airbnb does not give you the exact address, right? So how do you go about the address then?
So Airbnb will give you close enough landmarks. So then
Yeah,
you have to do the work, or you can hire a VA to do the work. I will say, in my personal opinion, that's the slowest way to get clients because you're like manually tracing each listing and doing all of this work. In my mind, it is far easier to go acquire another property management company. And if you're hanging around Facebook, there's lots of groups that have like ways to go acquire property management companies, because a lot of these people don't even know they've built a business that can be acquired. And so you
yeah.
can do a lot of creative things, including get seller finance on the business deal. You can get an SBA loan if their financials are clean. There's lots of ways to be creative.
Absolutely. Well, Rashmi, you have built a business for yourself, and understanding that how you built your team, how you have grown your business, definitely you come with a lot of background. So I highly suggest anybody who's listening to this show to reach out to you if they are remotely interested into short-term rental, vacation rental, or even boutique hotels, right? Or at least have a good conversation with you. Let's go to our final round. This is a quick fire round, okay? And in this, we'll just ask you a question, and whatever first thing comes to your mind, you can just say that. Let's just
I'm a little nervous, but okay.
all right. What's your favorite book on entrepreneurship, hospitality, or personal growth?
Ooh, okay, I have so many. I talked about the 4 Hour Work Week, but the Shoe Dog by Phil Knight is still my favorite book of all time.
What is it about?
It's about the guy who founded Nike, Phil Knight, and he's. I wasn't expecting the book to be funny, but he's such a good writer, and he talks about the entire story about how he founded Nike, and just such a cool guy.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. One thing you wish every entrepreneur would know.
The journey isn't a straight line. There's going to be a lot more lows than highs.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And not give up, have patience, and stick to your goals.
And not everything you see on social media is real.
That's so true. Okay. Dream destination, either from vacation standpoint or from investing standpoint.
Ooh, that's tough. I've been really wanting to take my husband on a Southeast Asia trip. So do like Singapore, Bali, Malaysia. I used
Ah,
to live in Malaysia, but I would love to. It's been just like on my list, and I want to fly Emirates out there.
awesome. Biggest mindset shift that helped you scale your business.
Everything happens for you, not to you. And I actually do a lot of mindset work. So joining that mastermind got me into like the mindset world. And so, meditating every morning, knowing where I want to be in 3 years, like, acting through that person and taking those actions today. Very big on all of that.
And not like that, right? Most of the time we are setting a 1 year goal
Mhm.
and having that 3 year, 5 year goal. How do you see yourself in next couple of years down the line?
Yeah, and
Not
and
just
what
next
you'll
year.
be surprised is you can achieve your 3 year goals a lot faster than 3 years. I think we have this concept like if we have like a yearly goal, we'll acquire it faster. But when you actually see your 3 to 5 year and it's further out, you're like, oh, like I need to change this. Like a book I'm currently reading is called The Science of Scaling. If anyone, I've only read 2 chapters, but it's been fantastic so far. But one thing he talks about is how do you set impossible goals and how
Hmm.
do you build a company to achieve those.
What does bigger life mean to you?
Ooh, living life on my own terms. So, doing what I choose to do every morning by my own conviction.
Great. Well, thanks, Rashmi. This is has been a very inspiring conversation. For those listening to connect with you, what's the best way to reach out to you? Reserve Hospitality or personal Instagram, or what's the best way?
Yeah, I'd love if everybody could drop me a follow. It's called Toasty Indian. I share a lot about like behind my life between my properties and my Indian restaurant and my family, and talk about Indian American life. So please hit me up on there. I'm on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, all of it.
All of it. Awesome. And to our listeners, if you got value from this episode, please subscribe, share it with somebody who's ready to level up, and leave us a review. Thank you for joining us, Bigger Life podcast. And remember, think bigger, live bolder, and keep building that bigger life. We'll be back next week with another great episode. Thank you.